my lovelies. I am Madam Crystal Butterfly, and today I want to talk to you all about a story that is driving me insane, and that's Silver Elite by Danny Francis. Let's start off by talking a little bit about the author. When it comes to this particular author, I can really only tell you a tiny bit about them because no one knows exactly who Danny Francis is. And the question about what is the identity of this author has even set the book community on fire, especially readers on TikTok known as BookTokers. Just because everyone wants to know who is this Danny Francis person who wrote this book. Some people even suspect that the reason why Danny Francis is such a secret is because the author is really AI. After reading this book, I don't really think that AI wrote it. However, like everybody else, I really don't have the first clue of who this Danny Francis person is. I did a more in-depth discussion about the controversy and mystery surrounding Danny Francis with my co-host Mia Hartney on our podcast As the Pages Turns, and if you're interested in hearing our more in-depth analysis of this whole issue, just check out my podcast As the Pages Turn, or ATPT. I will link it in the comments below. With all of the obsession over who is this Danny Francis person, it does leave the question of what on earth is Silver Elite even about? Rena Darlington has spent her whole life in hiding, honing her psychic abilities and aiding the rebel uprising in small ways. On the continent, being modified means certain death, and Ren is one of the most powerful mods in existence. When one careless mistake places her in the hands of the enemy and she is forced to join their most elite training program, she's finally handed the perfect opportunity to strike a devastating blow from inside their ranks. Let's take a moment to talk about Ren and how she's pretty much just a problem. I will not soften the blow. Ren Darlington, our main character, is a character I absolutely hate, and she was not fun to read about. She opens up the story going on and on about all she's been through and how she suffered, gone through training, homing her psychic abilities and combat and her ability to shoot and all that, but really, it feels like you might as well just leave all that on the floor. Yes, she does demonstrate some combat capabilities and things like that. Yes, she does use her psychic abilities from time to time in the story, but really all of this just feels meaningless when you read how the story plays out. Alright, so people in this story with these telepathic abilities are called mods, and mods are born with a mark that shows they are mods. And the evil government is trying to wipe them out, except for the few that they have working for them. And Ren is supposed to be the most special mod because she's very, very powerful, and unlike other mods, her veins do not glow silver when she uses her powers. So she goes completely undetected. Also, if you're wondering about her mark, her adoptive uncle burned it off when she was a child so that nobody would know that she is a mod. In the beginning of the story, Ren talks about how she grew up in these black lands with her uncle when she was very small, and apparently it was nightmarish and torturous, but this whole Blacklands thing is also one of the story's failings. For such a nightmarish place and everything else, it is not referenced very much, and other than it being so dark you can't see, I don't understand fully how it was such a torture to be there. I wouldn't like to be in a place where you can't really see all the time, but it sounded like they had lanterns and some kind of light, so I did not fully grasp how the Blacklands were just this absolute hellscape. After Rin is done whining, and I do mean whining about her time in the Blacklands, the story goes into how she just had sex with a soldier and now she's trying to sneak out because a goodbye would be too awkward for her. This is one of the key parts of the story that really just aggravated me, because she talks about how she has sex with the soldiers for fun, not to try to get some kind of information out of them, not to try to possibly manipulate soldiers to her side. She's just doing it for funsies. So basically, she likes to occasionally sleep with the soldiers who are against mods, basically people like her, and want to wipe people like her out of existence. Those are the people she likes to climb into bed with for fun. That is just simply disgusting. And this is a thorn in my side I will have to come back to many times in this review, especially when I get into the discussion of the love interest. I'm going to take a moment to talk about a few of this character's many flaws. And I want to talk a little bit about her love interest, who I nicknamed Sexy Man because of how Rin acts towards him. And the fact that even though this character did do things from time to time, he was not very memorable, so I do have difficulty remembering his name. Rin's first problem, and probably her biggest problem, is her impulsive behavior. She does talk about how her uncle trained her entire life, and her uncle's name is Jim Darlington. But really, the fact that she is impulsive as she is in making poor decisions, it makes me question her training, and how can she be this absolute, calculating, methodical badass if she is constantly doing impulsive things like having sex with the enemy just for fun on their base. Even worse, okay, so as I told you, the story opens up with Rin trying to sneak away from the soldier she slept with because awkward goodbyes are just too much for her. But by doing that, she's calling even more attention to herself. She's supposed to be secretive. She's supposed to be hiding from the evil government, going directly, sleeping with one of their soldiers, and then trying to sneak out. And this guy is clearly trying to follow her instead of just doing an awkward goodbye and saying, I'm not that into you. We had fun, but it's not gonna work out. It's 10 times worse. But what is even worse to begin with is that she felt the need to sleep with the soldier. Partially off of that problem, when she is trying to sneak away from the dude, she tries to hide in some random room. Now, once again, she is in an area where all the soldiers are sleeping. Why would it be wise to duck into a random room and you don't know who is on the other side? But when she ducks into this room, it's Sexy Man's room, and he grabs her because she's a strange woman who just jumped into his room in the middle of the night, and her reaction for the most part is, how dare he have the nerve to just grab me like this? Who does he think he is? He's the owner of that room. He does not know who you are, and you just ducked into this room in the middle of the night. Also, she has her gun with her, adding to why is she confused of why he would grab her. To make this situation even worse, her mind goes from how dare he grab me to how she probably should have had sex with him instead of the guy she just had sex with because he's cuter. So her priorities just are stupid. Later, when she gets herself out of that situation-ish because the soldier she slept with is still trying to follow her out and, find out where she lives, but she's making it clear to him, hey, I'll call you later, when she's really not plotting to call him. She heads down to town where a festival is apparently going on, and there's an incident with a little boy being dragged by some kind of mutated coyote, and Rin knows she's an excellent shot and she shoots the coyote straight in the eye, stopping it and saving the child, but also calls more attention to herself. And the calling attention to herself, as I mentioned, is another one of her biggest flaws, because for somebody who's supposed to be secretive, somebody who's supposed to be hiding, she just calls way too much attention to herself. It's to the point where I know the whole coyote taking the child and her shooting it was supposed to bring up the moral argument, should you let the one child die to save the many, but you can't really ask the question, not just because of Rin's impulsive behavior and constantly calling attention to herself, but also because of the way this story is paced. 3 important things a writer must always take into account when writing a story is pacing, world building, and making sure the audience will care about your characters. The pacing of this story, if anything, was way too fast. There was no real time to really get to know these characters, or really any setup that would make the audience care about these characters, such as when the coyote incident happens, instead of questioning whether or not it was morally right to save a little boy, in the case to save the many, because Rin is supposed to be the special person, the mom that's more powerful than all the others, and therefore she would be a huge asset to the resistance, and her calling all this attention to herself also by saving the child puts the resistance at risk. You're not really asking that question when the coyote comes up. You're stuck asking the question of why was the coyote not dealt with, because they're having a festival, and when the coyote even shows up, people are acknowledging that it does this all the time. So why would you ignore and have a festival when you know there's a dangerous coyote running around and people get drunk and there are children about? Why was there not more focus given to getting rid of the coyote? That is just a very strange thing to do. Anyway, after she kills the coyote, the guy Rin had slept with and Sexy Man both take more of an interest in her because that was too good of a shot, and they feel that she should join the military, which is something she does not really want, because she's supposed to be a part of the uprising against the evil government. So she says no, she goes home. She does not think about the fact that she has gotten these people to take too much of an interest in her, and her uncle is a wanted criminal for abandoning his post and being a deserter and combating against the evil government. She doesn't consider any of that, goes home, and later the military people capture her uncle because she did not consider that they would follow her after she made such a spectacle of herself and called large amounts of attention to herself. Her uncle is very quickly tried and set to execution by firing squad. Rin goes to try to stop them from killing her uncle, but before I get into what happened with the whole firing squad, something else that the story I feel did in a very lackluster way is when her uncle is taken, she's talking about how she and her uncle have all these contingency plans. I don't see the point of her bringing that up because she does not use any of them. Also, I don't see why they didn't have hundreds of preventative plans so that they wouldn't end up in trouble to begin with, such as not sleeping with soldiers. She tries to save her uncle. I believe she lost control of her powers. I'm not 100% sure. But when she tries to save her uncle, she loses control of her powers and her uncle gets killed. Now, she was trying to save her uncle by controlling the soldiers who were going to shoot him. But as I said, she lost control. And the soldiers who she tried to control knew a mod just tried to control them. So naturally, they're suspicious. In this case, they did not not know she was really there. Everybody's suspicious, but immediately after everything goes to crap, she tries to run away, which makes her look very, very suspicious. She is captured and brought in for questioning. They bring in a very powerful mod who works for the government. I believe her name is Jade Valance, and she reads Ren's mind, and Ren is able to cover it up. And they give her the okay, all clear. You're clearly not with the resistance. She's like, fine, let me go. They're like, no, now you must join Silver Elite. Join the training to become a part of Silver Elite, our most elite guard, which also makes no sense because I don't understand why they didn't make her a part of maybe a different section of their soldiers if they wanted her in the military so bad, because they did suspect her of being with the uprising when she ran away, and because of her uncle being who he is, combined with considering who our uncle was, why would you want that person near your top level forces and being trained to be in your top level forces? Anyway, so Ren does not want to be a part of Silver Elite. She's upset because her uncle is dead and all that, and all this very, very serious story stuff often takes a complete backseat because Sexy Man is technically the head of the training for the Silver Elite, and her mind is more focused on how she wants to climb in bed with him, then starts thinking about how she would never sleep with him because he is someone who works for the people who are against her existence. And why would she ever want to be with somebody like that? To less than a sentence or paragraph later, dreaming about how she wants to sleep with him. And you can forget about her contemplating all that stuff with her uncle. She does that for 5 seconds. Her main focus is this guy and how technically she wants to sleep with him and only pretend for 5 seconds that she doesn't, which is a real problem throughout this story. Lastly, I do want to touch a little bit about the uprising. So the uprising against the evil government is not going to help Ren out or bail her out. She's called too much attention to herself, and the situation is if they were to intervene, they risk full exposure and everything going to crap. So she's not really even doing a good job also of trying to focus on how to make a deal with them to make it worth their effort to try to even save her. She's just mostly going back and forth about how she wants to sleep with this guy. She sometimes thinks about how she wants to go and line up with the uprising, but she doesn't really think about the best way to do it. I feel she's just way too much all over the place. To protect what a person loves most, sometimes they have to hide it or them. Sadly, not all secrets get to remain secret forever. Realms, the Hidden Fairy, available now. So there are other plot points I would have liked to discuss in this review, but I need to keep it spoiler free, and I would have been getting way too much into the story if I did. But I do feel there was just too much focus on how the main character wanted to hook up with Sexy Man. I feel like there was not good world building done because it was difficult often when she would move to an area to picture it, and it was also difficult to really grasp this story because it's supposed to be a dystopian story with, the uprising and all of that, but it felt like this author did not want to really dig into serious issues while trying to get into serious issues, which made it so this was not a fun read, and I feel like it didn't allow the story to really tell something deeper, in addition to the pacing, as I mentioned earlier, being way too quick, because many of the things I mentioned, you would think I was in the middle of the book, but really I was still on my way to the middle of the book. Way too much stuff happened way too quickly, and as I mentioned earlier, characters I don't feel were established well enough to make the audience give two craps about them. And because of all of this, I am giving this book the score of half a butterfly out of 5. The reason why this story gets half a butterfly is because even though I did not like it and it was not a fun read for me, at least I can tell it was a story. At least something happened in the story, and it wasn't mindless gibberish on the page in the sense of I couldn't tell anything that was going on. So I will give this author that. I do feel like Silver Elite, instead of being published right away, probably still needed several more rewrites because pacing needs to be fixed. Character dynamics need to be fixed. Character motivations need to be fixed. If this author wanted to do from enemies to lovers, I feel like that could have been executed dramatically better than the way the author did it. But that is my opinion on this book. After all, I am a book reviewer and my job is to read a book and give you guys my opinion. Whether or not you find it interesting and you want to read it, that's fully your choice and your decision. And with that, my lovelies, this video is a wrap. Please give me a like, leave me a little comment, and if you have not yet, slap that subscribe button like it owes you money. And don't forget to give that little notification bell a ring. Now, if you please, come with me as we dance into a world of magic.